We like delving into bad science takes around here, and this time around, we're gonna put some bad health takes under the microscope. Some of these are recent viral claims from social media, while others are old as the hills. Now, there's no shame in buying into myths about human health. We've all been taken in by something questionable at one point or another. Whether because it seems to make sense on the surface, or we've heard it so often that it just has to be true. But we are fans of regularly updating our beliefs, and then maybe sharing this video with your Facebook aunt or whoever needs to see it. So let's tackle some health science takes and rate their truthfulness. We're starting off strong with a claim that's been wildly shared on the internet for a long time, that soy-based foods can act like estrogen. As high-protein plant-based options, soy-based foods and supplements have become super popular over the last few decades in the United States. But some people avoid soy because they think it will feminize men, whatever that means. People pushing this myth latch on to the fact that soy contains high levels of compounds called isoflavones, which are a type of phytoestrogen produced by various plants. Their chemical structure is similar to the estrogen produced in the human body, ergo, some people think they would do all the things that estrogen does in the body. But it turns out they don't. While isoflavones can bind to the same receptors as estrogen produced in the human body, their structural differences mean they don't bind as tightly, so they don't trigger the same effects as the human hormone. There are claims that soy can cause issues like erectile dysfunction or reduced testosterone levels or sperm count. And rodent studies in the 2000s showed some reproductive effects, but it turned out that rodent bodies produced the stuff differently than humans, so it wasn't a fair comparison. There was also a 2008 case study of a man who reportedly developed enlarged breast tissue after consuming soy regularly. But this turned out to be an unusual one-off case of someone who reported drinking 3 quarts of soy milk every day. Subsequent studies have shown that consuming multiple cups of soy milk or servings of tofu will not cause someone's breasts to grow. And crucially, a 2010 meta-analysis found that isoflavones do not reduce the levels of testosterone in men, nor do they increase levels of estrogen. The thing is that all humans naturally produce estrogen, even the most manly men. But alas, experts are still pushing back against this persistent myth. So we give this a red on the truth meter. While it made sense to look into the similarities between estrogen and isoflavones, believing that eating soy can feminize someone is by and large bogus. Now, we know that the microbes in the digestive tract are important for health, and that food shapes that community of microscopic critters. It's also established that eating lots of fruits and vegetables is good for health. Their varied nutrients don't only feed your human cells, they also feed your gut bacteria and help them thrive in a way that can benefit their host. A long-term study looked at lots of people's diets paired with stool samples to tease out the effects on gut microbiome composition. The ongoing study started over a decade ago and continues to collect and analyze samples from people all over the world. A 2018 article by these researchers found that individuals who reported eating more than 30 types of plants per week had healthier gut microflora than those who reported less plant diversity in their diets. They didn't only count fruits and vegetables, but also seeds, nuts, and whole grains. These results made a splash on social media, leading to 30 plant challenges and tips on how to diversify your plant food menu. But the researchers themselves made it clear that 30 is more of a goal than a strict guideline. See, the 2018 study compared those people who reported eating more than 30 plants to a contrasting population that reported eating fewer than 10. And there's just too big of a gap in the middle there to designate 30 as some kind of magic number. It's probably more like the closer you get, the better. In addition to that, since the data were self-reported, it's possible people subconsciously made their eating habits look a little better than they really were. So we're giving this one a solid yellow. If you tend to gravitate towards the same apples, bananas, potatoes, and carrots, it could be worth trying to add in more variety. But failing to hit 30 some weeks doesn't necessarily mean you're letting your gut down. There's a common belief that metabolism inevitably slows down over time. Often when people think of metabolism, they're roughly thinking of the resting metabolic rate, or the number of calories required to maintain a person's basic functions while awake but at rest. But metabolism is much more complex than that. It's basically all of the chemical reactions that keep you alive and doing what you do. Day in and day out, your tissues are breaking down materials from the food you eat and providing energy for the work of cells. Some folks gain body weight as they get older, and we often hear that with age we burn fewer calories from food. But the years don't take a direct toll on someone's energy needs at the cellular level. Consider a 2021 study published in the journal Science that looked at the metabolic rates of over 6,000 participants from around the world, ranging from a few days old to 95 years old. Controlling for body size, the researchers found 4 specific phases of different levels of cellular energy expenditure. They observed that infants are churning through the most energy, which makes sense given that their systems are the most busy growing and developing. Then it remains higher until early adulthood, but rather than declining as someone approaches middle age and crosses the peak of the proverbial hill, metabolic rate pretty much plateaus at around age 20 and stays around the same for decades. These researchers suggest that metabolism doesn't start slowing due to the age of someone's actual body and organs until age 60. And even then, it slows down very little each year, around 0.7% per year. Now, we do lose muscle mass as we age, and that leads to fewer calories burned by the body overall, and this is because muscle tissue uses more calories to maintain itself than the same mass of fat tissue. The reasons for this muscle loss are complicated and are thought to be involuntary to a degree. Over time, cells get less efficient at making enough of the proteins needed to maintain muscle mass. This is going to happen whether you like it or not over the decades. But it's not entirely or even mostly inevitable. Another big reason people lose muscle with age is a reduction in physical activity and not enough protein intake. You can do something about a lot of it. Someone who regularly does weight-bearing activities and eats enough protein to support their muscle mass is likely going to be better off. Of course, that's easier said than done and can require resources and support. But with all of that said, there has to be more than just that going on, because the researchers in the 2021 study controlled for the loss of muscle mass and still found a decline in metabolic rate. So there's still more going on that we don't understand yet. We give this one a yellow on the truth meter. Yes, age takes its toll on the body, but it goes to show that staying stronger for longer is very helpful for quality of life as people age. Certain corners of the internet claim that all artificial food coloring is toxic to kids and should be eliminated. Worries about exposure to synthetic food dyes have made the rounds for the last 50 years. One specific concern has been that some artificial food dyes are linked to behaviors associated with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, in children. There have been a slew of natural and artificial food colorings throughout history. Sometimes these are shown to be unsafe and banned, and safety guidelines have become much stricter over time. As of 2025, there are 8 synthetic food colors approved in the US, and a few of them have been called out for these possible neurobiological effects. One red dye is known in the United States as red number 40. Another, red number 3, was pulled by the FDA in January of 2025, though for reasons unrelated to hyperactivity. The concern about ADHD and red dye started circulating after a 2007 study that looked at children's behavior after consuming a drink with either a mix of artificial food colorings or a placebo mix. A subgroup of the subjects who received the artificial colors showed slightly more signs of hyperactivity. But there were issues with the study. The coloring mix contained not only red 40, but also other dyes and a preservative, so it doesn't make sense to single out a specific dye there. Also, the symptoms of hyperactivity were measured in several ways, but there isn't like a lab test for ADHD. That's at least partly because ADHD and associated behavior are tricky to measure and diagnose. Some activists and experts point out that there's also ableism at play. Kids have been hyperactive since long before there were artificial food dyes, and there just isn't anything inherently wrong with that. And much of the evidence linking hyperactive behavior with dyes is based on the observations of caregivers. Scientists are still pinning down how these chemicals might be causing hyperactivity, including the golden rule of toxicology that the dose makes the poison. One legitimate takeaway is that some kids seem more sensitive than others to these artificial colors. So this one lands somewhere between yellow and red. If parents notice a behavioral difference in their kids, it's probably fine to avoid artificial colors. But for kids who aren't sensitive to them, red dye isn't going to affect how hyperactive they are unless it comes in something caffeinated. And it's certainly not going to give someone ADHD. Another popular social media claim is that the chemicals in sunscreen might cause cancer. One big sunscreen fear is about the presence of benzene, a chemical that's widely used as an industrial solvent. It's also a known carcinogen linked to leukemia. Some sunscreens have even been recalled because of benzene, but crucially, in this case, it was a contaminant, not an ingredient that was intentionally added. It's also worth noting that benzene can be in the air and water, especially in highly polluted areas, and it's generally a bad thing. By contrast with mass-produced sunscreen, sunlight has that all-natural halo, and exposure to it can seem downright healthy. But whether something is natural or human-made has no inherent bearing on its safety profile. Benzene is also naturally occurring. It's released in volcanic eruptions, from burning wood, and from crude oil. And sunlight is a proven carcinogen. So not only do we not have evidence that chemicals in sunscreen cause cancer, we do have evidence suggesting that these false claims are leading to real harm. Surveys are showing that younger Americans are more likely to believe that sunscreen itself is more dangerous than daily sun exposure. And though a connection hasn't been proven yet, younger people are being diagnosed with skin cancer at more advanced stages than before. Homemade sunscreens are a trend, but experts recommend against it because most people don't have the means to make a sunscreen that actually works. As we've been known to say, technically nothing actually gives you cancer. It's not a binary where you don't have cancer and then something flips the one switch and boom, you have cancer. It's more like an inconceivably intricate set of many switches involved in different ways, contributing to the development of hundreds of types and way more subtypes of cancers. And things that flip those switches are everywhere, so it's mostly about minimizing our exposure to them. And you know what we know for sure, definitely 100% flips those switches? Sunlight. So just wear sunscreen. We're giving this one the lowest score of them all, just red, a solid red. While there's no evidence that sunscreen itself contributes to someone developing leukemia or other cancers, it is proven to help prevent cancer from sun exposure. So to summarize things, it's fine to eat soy. A diversity of plants is good for your tummy, but don't stress out about hitting a certain number. Aging slows you down, but you can take steps to slow down the slowing down. Red dye is probably not something to freak out about, and sunscreen is good. And most of all, it's pretty easy to expose yourself to oversimplified, exaggerated takes on the internet. A little research and critical thinking go a long way, and that's why we've got your back.